This episode is brought to you by Freestyle Photographic Supply. So I ended up getting an email from TTArtisans, and it read a little like this. You up? Want to touch my lens? I guess I'll try anything once. Okay, so here's the deal. I've been silently surfing the waves of the eBay, for a while now for a 28mm lens for my Leica. But I've just been a little too afraid to commit. Guess I should probably figure that out before my wedding. But nothing has really been speaking to me. I mean, how would I even know if I really liked that 28mm life? So when TTArtisans had reached out about their 28mm F5.6, I thought, why the hell not? I've been trying to live that 28mm life anyway. So today I thought it'd be fun to give that 28mm a try on the streets. And I'll give you my very honest opinion about this very affordable lens. And yeah, honest, you know the man won't hold me down. You can't shut me up that easy, man, I told them. But for serious, let's go see if this lens is right for you. Or I guess more importantly, right for me. I mean, it is my channel. So I told Jason to meet me at my casa so we could hit the mean streets of DTLA. It has been a while since I've last stepped foot downtown for photos. It was probably the BNC event a couple years ago where I was only kind of invited. Before the Darkroom gang fell in love with me, that is. I don't want to run this lady over, cause that would be murder, and I'm not into that. Well, gotta move. After parking, loading film, and then reparking because LA parking sucks, Jason and I hit the streets to find some bangers. We were told that they were just lying on the streets and all we had to do was find them. It's like a Where's Waldo situation. Damn, Daniel! Back at it again with those Lomo colors. Oh yeah, that's more like it. This photo of the man chilling here between the plain suitcases and the extra bright suitcases, bops. Bop-s, bops. And I just learned that word. I think there's something weird going on here other than the shot just being very mid. Let's come back to it. The first thing I noticed when opening this lens package was the presentation. Nice soft fabric protecting the lens and the lens hood. Very impressive. They're definitely trying to win over that unboxing game. Most of my lenses just come in a crusty old sock. But honestly, I should probably just stop buying my lenses from the dumpster. The second thing I noticed was how heavy this slab of metal actually was, especially for the size. This lens weighs 193 grams. And yes, grams, because I'm obsessed with coffee, and that is how I weigh my beans. So you could go ask Siri for the conversion.
6.81 ounces.
There you go. Now that isn't the heaviest M mount lens I own, the Canon 50mm being a beastly 284 grams. But that was made in the 50s out of some spare plane parts. That's not factually accurate. And because people love things that come in threes, the third thing I noticed was how itsy bitsy this little feller is. Just look how this stacks up against my other M mount lenses. I could 100% fit that inside my mouth. No questions asked. Maybe I should try. No, I think I'll wait. vibe check? Hells yeah. I love the colors in this one. Matched with the lady walking away to the left and the car movement to the right, this one just hits differently, you know? Now, the construction of this lens is quite nice for a hunk of metal that you can get for sub $400. Even the cap feels like they're metal. The aperture is nice and clicky, but they are only full stop increments. And the focus ring is nice and damp, definitely making it nice and easy to focus. It also looks quite handsome on my all blacked out M6. I also asked TTA if they could send me one of their external viewfinders as well, so I would be able to use it on my MDA. And it's definitely a nice addition to have. Now, the funny thing is that this lens hood is actually basically the same height as the lens itself, but it does look pretty baller. When looking up the specs of this lens on TTA's site, they mentioned that over time, the black version of this lens will brass. Some people love brassing, some people don't. I get that. When looking at this lens, you'll notice that the zone focusing markers are painted all around this entire lens. I know this puppy is a wide angle, and that means less inherent depth of field, but damn. If you just stop down to f8 at 3 feet away, absolutely everything is in focus. I could have probably just pointed and shooted instead of actually focusing on something. And not to mention, I had ISO 800 film in the camera during the day, so my aperture was between 11 and 16 anyways, which opened that bad boy up to basically focusing on the entire planet. Moving on to the 28mm viewfinder, it's pretty well made and feels sturdy enough with no signs of slipping out of the hot shoe mount, which is good because just like my flip-flops, it has no back to lock it in. I do wish it was a bit smaller overall, kind of like my Voigtlander 15mm. And speaking of that Voigtlander viewfinder, it also has frame lines to make it easy to tell where your framing is, unlike the TTA's, which is basically just a slab of glass to approximate framing. It does seem to be really spot on with my M6 viewfinder, so that is nice. I could see if you're popping around the street, this viewfinder is quick and bright to see your framing before blasting off a shot. Overall, this viewfinder is less than 50 bucks, where my 15mm viewfinder is like 150. So yeah, I'll take the $50 one and keep the other $100 for film, or drugs, or film. Overall, I have to say that this lens is pretty sharp, and this pancake brings it. I wish I had real pancakes now. Okay, so here's where we dive a little bit deeper into the actual issue I foresee with this lens, other than, well, not understanding how to be a street photographer. Enhance into this image. Here, close to the center of the frame over the stoplight, I see a little bit of flaring in the blacks as compared to the sign to its right, or if you even move towards the side of the image. Which brings me back to a shot from earlier at the fruit stand. If you look here at this little dude, yeah, the one staring at me because I'm rocking M6, his black t-shirt is, well, black, like it should be. But if we take a stroll over to the lady buying the fruit and the Raiders jacket behind her, we see the same flaring in the blacks. And the weird thing is that these shots weren't being hit with direct sunlight. They were just bounced from a very shiny object. So I'd kind of hate to see what happens when exposed to the full blast of the sun's gamma radiation. Kind of leads me to conclude that the lens contrast levels are not as controlled as one you would see with a more expensive lens. But let's circle back to the lens hood for just a moment, because one of the biggest problems I had while shooting this lens was adjusting the aperture for proper exposure. We just so happen to be dodging in and out of different lighting conditions, going inside little shops. So my exposure was actually changing 3 to 4 stops depending on where we were actually at. And with the lens hood, it was just hard to adjust the aperture while its big ass was in the way. Because this lens hood is a clip-on, it sits flush with the aperture tab, and it makes it super difficult to grab. Now, if that 28mm hood was maybe a screw-on, it might have been faster to operate. I definitely lost some shots because I was trying to get the correct exposure. Now, like I said, I'm not a street person, and maybe I'm just doing everything wrong and just playing mid, but at least it bumps me enough to say something about it. Another thing that bumps me personally, but doesn't bump the focus, is quite literally the focus lock at infinity. Maybe this episode should just be called Caleb Sucks at Street Photography and Doesn't Know How to Use the Tools at His Disposal. But that name is too long and not as catchy, even though it might be true. I mean, is this how real street photographers use this lens with the focus lock? To be fair, I've always hated infinity locks in the first place. My Canon 50mm has one and I just can't stand it. But it does make sense if you're at 16 and lock it at infinity so you don't mess with it. I like to play with the lens anyway. One cool thing is that this lens also comes as a Leica thread mount for all those older Leica cameras, or even the Besses from the early 2000s. This is really nice because it breathes new life into that lens lineup. Why did I take this shot? It's pointless. It has nothing. There's no subject. What was I thinking?
When this car leaves the frame. Wait. Yeah, no, I got it.
But you know what goes extremely well with my Leica and this 28mm lens? Film, the lifeblood of any photographer. Well, I guess maybe not digital. And what better place to get film than Freestyle Photographic Supply? Based here in LA, but ships worldwide, Freestyle is the place to go for any type of film you can think of. Whether it's black or white, or color, or the godly Lomo 800, you can find literally anything. They make it their mission to carry as many different types of film as possible so that you have the choice to experiment and play. And who doesn't like playing? I like playing. It's refreshing. And you can rest assured that the folks at Freestyle know exactly what they're talking about since, well, they've been around the block for a better part of 76 years. Not to mention, I think they're wearing it very well. And if you're looking to take that next step in your photography experience by printing your ever so beautiful photos, Freestyle is the place for you to go for traditional darkroom enlarging or inkjet printing. They have a print master on staff so they can answer any question that you might have to get you started. Freestyle is striving to get film into the hands of those who love the medium and want to keep exploring that love even further. So if you're new to film or you've been shooting since birth, Freestyle is the place for you to go for all your photo and film needs. Just check out my links in the description below and find what strikes your fancy. Okay, let's shoot some more film.
You got that Lomo 800. So right off the bat, got a chip up on the lens hood already. And because the lens hood, it's really hard to change the aperture. It's sometimes annoying when you're trying to go fast, go pow, pow, change. But maybe it's just a set it and forget it type of thing. Who knows? But you know, the focus tab is really nice.
Now let's go back to the box one last time because there's one more thing to discuss, and that is the calibration chart that this lens comes with. If you don't know, sometimes these lenses need to be calibrated by you, which, to put it lightly, sucks so much. Not fun at all. I did originally have a 28mm 7 Artisans lens a long ass time ago, but I sold it because I could never get it calibrated. So I'm definitely gonna be sad the day that I'll have to calibrate this lens, if it needs it. And who knows? That is the trade-off you get when opting to buy a cheaper lens. But to be fair, this thing is so wide and at such a small aperture anyways, who will even tell the difference? Probably not me. Which ultimately brings me to my conclusion. This lens made me fall in love with the 28mm focal length. 10 out of 10 living rent-free. But does this mean that this lens is for me? Fortunately, no, I don't think so. And it's mostly due to two things. One would be that f5.6. That f5.6 is way too slow for the type of work I usually go for, which is trash, dim bathrooms, and real estate photos of decaying dwellings. I'm usually in places that have dim lighting, so I need fast lenses. Or I need Kodak to get their act together and create a color ISO 3200 film. But let's face it, if Jason has been suffering from internal bleeding due to chugging flaming hot Mountain Dew over the year to bring aerochrome back, I don't think we're gonna be seeing a 3200 color film. And that second reason is just how difficult it is to change the aperture ring. I just don't wanna miss the shot. And maybe if I use this lens for a year straight to wear down my fat fingers to be like chopsticks, small enough to change the aperture, then yeah, maybe it'll work for me. I know I could take the lens hood off, but it might introduce more flaring than I would actually like. At the end of the day, this is definitely a street photographer's lens. So that means it really wasn't made for me, but it is one of their best-selling lenses. So I do understand that appeal. I mean, without the lens hood, it is a pancake. It can fit in my back pocket. Not that I would carry my camera in my back pocket, but you could do it if you wanted to. Maybe next time I should slap that bad boy onto my MDA and force me to zone focus like the lens is probably gonna be made for. Then it might be right down my DTLA alley. Okay, that will do it for me today. I hope you learned something, unlike most times where I just talk gibberish and then you just tune out. But I get it. Sometimes you just need a little bit of background noise. Okay, bye.